Alright guys, welcome back to another bag only, the inventory only Ironman, not using bags, death storage, POH, stashes, none of that. If you remember in the previous episode we just finished off by doing 2 subquests for Recipe for Disaster, picking up some iron gloves. So what I've just done is I've just bought a chocolate bar and some milk, put them together, made the hangover cure for Skippy and the Mogers. Made the nettle tea out of those nettles we picked up in Edgeville at the end of last episode. Just ran over, grabbed a snape grass from near the crafting guild and just turned in that mini quest. No rewards for it, but obviously it just lets us kill Mogers later when we have a higher Slayer level, so that's decent. So in this one, what I'm planning to do, just at the very start here, is just get a little bit of range training done, because our range is like 1 or something. And we've got all these bronze arrows to use up, so just going to hit up Lowe's bows in Varrock, grab ourselves a basic short bow, and a basic oak short bow, just because we'll likely pass level 5 from all these arrows. So we'll start off, we'll just try use up all these arrows if possible. I think coming up, maybe we'll attempt to get that rune skim again, something like that. Train our fishing a little bit. I guess we'll see as we go. Right guys, that's all our arrows. I think we had like 1400, something like that. We've ended up on 21 ranged, and we've just pushed our defense up 1 level from 16 to 17, I think. And then I'm just going to do a little bit of training, see if we can just hit our combats up. If we could melee up to 20 defense, that's really my only goal. Let's do that. So guys, I myth-skimmed some more cows, got our defense just quickly up to 20, then I remembered actually we could go to the Varrock sword shop and they sell Addy stuff. I looked at the stats and I replaced the myth-skim with an Addy short sword just because it is a little bit better. And then decided that we need to get our agility up a little bit more just to run around the game a bit easier, so I headed over to the Barb outpost with the minigame telly, started the bar crawl mini-quest just so we can access the Barbarian agility course. So I ran around the game doing the bar crawl, visiting various pubs. Partway through, when I hit Karamja, I realised that I could also do the Pirate's Treasure quest at the same time, just because a lot of the places you have to visit during the quest are quite close to some of the bars we'd be going to anyway. I.e., we need to get to the Blue Moon Inn in Varrock, we need to go to Falador, which is quite near the Falador pub, and the quest giver's right outside the Port Sarim pub. So we picked that up, did that in the meantime, grabbed the bananas, all that stuff. At the end of that quest, we were rewarded with 1 cut emerald, and of course we still had our gold bar from over at the Goblin Diplomacy quest. So I headed to Rimington, decided to grab a mould from the crafting shop that we used for the tiara last episode, teleported to Arda, used the furnace to make our first emerald ring, and of course we still have our cosmics from that ogre that we killed under Corsair Curse area. So we enchanted a dueling ring 8, and just carried that around with us, ran up to Sears Village, finished the bar crawl, then I spent a long time doing 85 laps of the barb course just to get our agility all the way from 35 to 40. I decided to stop at 40 because 40 unlocks the Canifis course, which is one of the best sort of early mid-game agility courses, so no point carrying on doing this one. Unfortunately we don't have Priest in Peril done, so we can't go do that course just yet, but it's a nice round place to stop. After that, I decided to take a crack at our Wolf Slayer task that we still have. The only low-level wolves we can really tackle are in the Stronghold of Security, so I went to Varrock, grabbed some more runes, headed to the Stronghold, killed like the 44 or 45 or whatever it was. And I think on this account we'd only done the first floor of the Stronghold before for the 1k coins. So I decided to just quickly run through the whole of the Stronghold, grab all the coin rewards, grab the boots at the end, and perform all 4 emotes that you have to do for one of the Varrock diary steps. After that I got some more runes and decided to try our luck again at Zami Warriors. Killed a whole bunch. Our total KC ended up at the end over 75 kills. And we didn't end up getting the rune skims, sadly. We did get a few swords, a few daggers, things like that, but to say the rune skim's 1 in 50, it's kind of sad. Although we did technically end up with an upgrade, as the rune dagger is like 1 attack or something better than an Addy sword, so that's something, I guess. Since we're definitely doing the Dorgashin quest at some point soon, I did decide to create a better light source just to hang on to. So what I did is I took the candle that spawns at the monastery, ran over to a trader crew member, grabbed some materials for glass, went to a furnace, blew 1 glass, and then blew that into a candle lantern, put the candle inside. So now when we do the Dorgashin quest, we'll have a slightly safer light source on us. Coming up next was a really long period of AFK time, a lot of editing, a lot of downtime where I wasn't going to be able to properly play the game, so I decided to spend almost all our money on feathers. We just went and did some fly fishing in the newbie areas like Barbarian Village. Obviously there's an everlasting cooking fire there now, so we did cook all the fish while we were there. Got a bunch of cooking levels up, as you can see. Then we ran to Otto, started Barbarian training, and then we moved our AFK over to heavy rod fishing over at the Barbarian area, just to earn some passive strength and agility XP at the same time. So after a couple of hours of Barbarian fishing, got a bunch of level ups, but we did run out of money completely, so I did decide to go fletch some more. So I teleported over to Lumbridge since I had absolutely no coins left, because we did spend them all on feathers. I used a tip from someone in the comments to say you can get a free bronze axe from a guy in Lumbridge, so grabbed that, fletched just enough like oak things just to get 200 for the steel axe. Then we headed back to Seer's village to make some bows. Classic flax content here. So once we had a little bit of GP, I decided to buy some armor so we could go train on some Chaos Druids. I wanted to get a single Guam so we could make an attack potion for barbarian training. Also wanted to keep some Taramins just to make some strength pots because it was the highest potion we could make at our level. So using our rune dagger and 2 pieces of myth armor, we killed enough Chaos Druids to get us from 20 defense to 30 defense. And because they also drop vials of water, we managed to get ourselves 5 Taramin potions and the 1 Guam potion we needed for barbarian training. So with our potions in hand, what I really quickly wanted to do is get our hunter up from the 9 we got from the natural history quiz in like the first or second episode, just up to 12 so we'd be able to do the Ascent of Arceus quest later. So I just grabbed a bird's snare from Yanil and we headed to some birds. We just caught enough birds, it wasn't too many. We also knocked out I think a western diary task by doing this, so that was helpful as well. We scooted over to hobgoblins, killed enough to get enough limpwort roots just to turn all our potions into strength pots for the XP. In doing this we gathered a few allotment seeds, so I tried to plant them over at Falador Farm. Spoiler alert, they did die because we didn't use compost or anything like that. Obviously we're not using the tool leprechaun here for storage, so anytime we need compost we will have to bring it with us or make it on site. We did nip to Betty's store just in Portstream just to grab the Eye of Newt for our attack pot too. After that we ran to Varrock to grab some supplies for barbarian training. Just grabbed a bow because you need to light a log with the bow. Sadly we weren't the level for barbarian firemaking, you need 35, so we scooted over to Lumbridge and just burnt some oak logs, just until we got ourselves the firemaking level just so we could light an oak log with a bow, which is one of the tasks. So with that random busy work out the way, it was time to finally take on the Priest in Peril quest. Unlocking the lands of Mauritania unlocks so much content. Not least of all, it's required to unlock fairy rings because you need to do the Nature's Spirit quest. So with a beefy strength level of 52, purely from fishing all the way up to 75 at the Barb area, I thought we'd easily be able to take on the boss underneath the mausoleum. And we had a fair amount of invent space free to deliver the pure essence, shouldn't take too many trips. I started off, as ever, stocking up on teas just in case, headed over to Drezel, and was tasked with defeating the Cerberus beast underneath the mausoleum. Of course this turns out to be a trick, as it's not in fact Drezel telling you to do this.
Man, I'm dead.
Partway through we saw Torvesta in the middle of town, which was really cool, playing on his new hardcore, rocking that awesome Thammaron set. You do need to deliver 50 pure essence or rune essence to the temple. Obviously we're not allowed to use any essence pouches on this account, so we would have to carry them just in our inventory. Since we needed to bring 50, I did decide to drop some items just to make 17 invent spaces. 3 lots of 17 would be 51, so we could complete this in 3 trips instead of 4. Our best transportation method was the Chronicle back to the Varrock River, running to Aubrey's store, teleporting to the Essence Mine, and then running from there. We also used some of our dueling ring charges doing this to teleport to the Ferox Enclave, drink the delicious juice, get our run energy back, then Chronicle back to Varrock. And once our deliveries were complete, we completed the quest. We were awarded 1400 prayer XP and the Wolfbane dagger, which we did just drop because I imagine it's reclaimable. So with Priest in Peril complete and Mauritania unlocked, our immediate next step was to complete the Nature's Spirit quest, the next step towards unlocking fairy rings for our account. So for this quest I needed a silver sickle and a Ghost Speak amulet, so we ran over to Ardy's stall, grabbed the silver bar, went to the Remington crafting store just like before and grabbed that sickle mould. I ran to Lumbridge, looked for the Ghost Speak ammy, couldn't quite remember where you reclaimed it so I ended up checking everywhere, but we found it eventually. Headed to the Lumbridge furnace, made the sickle. And with these 2 items in hand we ran all the way back to Mauritania from our classic Chronicle spot. We were then tasked by Drezel to go meet the Nature's Spirit down in the swamp. So we ran down, spoke to him. In order for him to help us, he does request that we get blessed by Drezel first, I guess with some kind of holy energy. So we run back to Drezel, get blessed, and then run back to the Nature's Spirit, just classic RuneScape busy work. After this, the Nature's Spirit empowers us to be able to kill ghasts. So we run back to the swamp, use our new powerful sickle to generate some mushrooms, and then use these to attack the ghasts nearby. After killing 3, you complete the Nature Spirit quest, transform the Nature Spirit house into a nature grotto, which does mean after the quest we can come back here to charge our prayer points, and we were awarded some crafting XP and some defense and hit points. Quick stats check here at the end, you can see our combats, and our 34 crafting. The next thing after Nature Spirit is Fairy Tale Part 1. During Fairy Tale 1, we have to create some magic secateurs. Now, a mage in the game will create these for us in exchange for 3 items from this random list. We got 3 that weren't incredibly painful, some of them you need high levels for, some of them you need to complete other quests for, so we did okay. The Crushed Gems, super easy, we can get from thieving ham members and then crushing one of the gems. Super Compost we just make, and then the Clean Snapdragon we have to go to the Agility Arena and do a little bit of agility. So our first port of call was the ham members, just because they're in Lumbridge, super easy to get to. On the way we got an easy clue, so we did the first step of that as well. We ran to the general store, bought a chisel, attempted to cut the gems, and obviously crushed some of them. We sold the rest of the junk for a little bit of GP, because you do need 200 gold to enter the agility arena. Before grabbing these cakes, I picked up 15 snapegrass from the hobgoblins just across the river in Rivington, and filled up the Ardy Farm compost bin. So while gathering the other 2 items, our compost would be generating. We headed over to Brimhaven, paid the entry fee, and jumped inside. For some reason at the start of the arena, the objective markers weren't showing up, so I decided to hop to the official world and just find the only other player in the game doing this and just follow him. Because the objective is the same for everyone. We managed to grab a few agility tickets, and then the arrows started to appear for us. It was a lot less painful once we could actually see what we were doing. Sadly, I did fail repeatedly on these darts, as you can see here. Failing these darts here drains your agility level by 1, so every time you fail, you're more likely to fail again in subsequent times. So we failed enough times in a row for our agility to actually dip below the 40 required to do agility here. So we did have to teleport out, go to Ferox Enclave with our jewel ring, and recharge all our stats at the juice. So that was kinda sad. Then Ardy cloaked back, took the boat back across, paid another entry fee of 200, came back in and grabbed our last tickets. With 10 in hand, we went to the NPC outside, exchanged them for a snapdragon. So after grabbing our snapdragon, we emptied the compost bin into a bucket, got ourselves 1 super compost, then I ran all the way down to Narda, thinking I would need to get this herb cleaned by the NPC who can clean herbs for you that are out of your level. But funnily enough, you already get a clean herb, so we didn't even need to do that. So with our 3 items, we went back to the Nature Spirit, and he turned our secateurs into magic secateurs so we could fight the quest boss. On the way around, I was grabbing the items required for this second step of this easy clue. As you can see, we got the desert shirt and stuff when passing Shanty Pass. Sadly, it was a 3rd step, so... Anyway, back to Xanaris to complete the quest, into the shed with our Xanaris staff, and then we went to Flinch the Tangleroot boss. Messed up the flinching a few times, but at least this guy isn't a one-hit kill like the Black Demon, so relatively painless experience. Got the Queen's secateurs, ran over and handed them in to complete the quest. As you can see, we were awarded a bunch of farming XP, which was super helpful, and a tiny bit in attack and magic. So we can grow up to Sweetcorn now, and we unlocked the Superheat item spell, which we've yet to use. Following on from this, our immediate next goal was to start Fairy Tail 2 straight away, unlock the Fairy Rings. Fairy Tail 2 has some relatively high requirements to complete, but you only need to begin the quest to unlock the Fairy Ring system. So what we did is we ran outside to Draenor, talked to Martin about what's happening to the plants, and then there's an arbitrary 5-minute wait during the quest, in which time I decided to go do the other step of this clue, which happened to be over on Zaya. While on Zaya, I did decide to make a little dent into our Hosidius Favour grind. Because this clue step was right near the Hosidius Plows, which you can do at 0% Favour, I decided we'd push the plows around just to hit 5% Favour and unlock the next activity for later. I did decide to do the clue first, just in case I did the Favour and then forgot and teleported out. Sadly, it was a 4-step easy clue, which is really annoying, but at least the next step was a possible one. Just had to go over to Falador. So we did our plows to 5% like we said, just unlocks another activity in order to unlock Favour later. After this we went straight to Falador, completed our clue, then we ran back to Draenor, talked to Martin and carried on the Fairy Tale quest. So there's some problem with the plants in the overworld, and it's because there's things happening to the fairy lands underneath, so we went back to Xanaris. We went on a mission to discover what was happening. So you run around, you learn some secret glyphs. You have to run just over to the Cosmic Altar entrance and just read this thing on the wall, which of course is some fairy language, but I think it teaches you how to use the fairy rings. So after running about and learning what's happening in Xanaris, we're finally in task to use the Fairy Ring system in order to find the Fairy Queen's secret hideout. We did speak to the Fairy Queen in our hideout and completed as much of the quest as possible at this stage. Sadly, continuing requires us to pickpocket the Fairy Godfather, which needs something like 40 thieving, so we weren't able to continue, but we did unlock the Fairy Rings, which we can use just to travel around the game at our leisure. We will definitely come back and complete Fairy Tail 2 in future, but right now it's really not on our list of priorities. One thing I like to do on RuneScape whenever I get an account to this kind of point is just key in as many codes into the Fairy Ring as possible, as this adds them to a quick travel list on the right hand side, and it allows you to type in the name of the location so you can just quickly search it from the list rather than having to know the code off by heart or looking it up. It does take a little bit of time to key in all potential codes, but I feel like it's worth it in terms of the time you save over the lifetime of the account. Once we'd done faffing with the Fairy Rings, I cracked the easy clue open. It was just 2 black items, complete garbage, worth a tiny amount of money. And so the first thing I did once I unlocked Fairy Rings was head over to the Enchanted Valley area. It's a location only accessible through the Fairy Ring system, so I decided to safe spot a few tree spirits to attempt to get a rune axe. It should be 1 in 32. We did happen to pull it on our second kill, which is really lucky. I guess it somewhat makes up for going so dry at the ZMI Warriors. Armed with a nice rune axe, I decided to go do some wood cutting and fletching because it'd be super quick now compared to before, just to make us a little bit of GP. While fletching, we pulled an acorn from a bird nest, which was really cool. So I grabbed a compost from our compost bin that we created earlier for the Fairy Tail 1, and I used the compost to plant the oak in Lumbridge. So I just fletched to save up about 20k coins, and then I headed over to do the dig site quest. Dig Site quest is great because it gives you some nice early Herblore XP. Herblore's going to be really, really hard for us to train. And it gives you a ton of mining XP. It's something like 15,000, which is just crazy. And obviously the Dig Site unlocks further quests like Bone Voyage, which is probably the most important one, and subsequent quests like Desert Treasure later down the line to get ancient magics and things like that. So I ran around doing all the dig site business, dug up a whole bunch of black med helms, which I decided to keep just to sell for money. But this point in the quest here where you have to use your trowel on the dirt, it took us ages to find the ancient talisman in the soil, and in the meantime we had a lot of inventory juggling to do, so that was kind of painful. But eventually we found everything that we needed to find, completed the quest, and completing that gave us 34 mining and 18 herblore, absolutely crazy gains, and also 2 gold bars which we could use to make more jewellery in a bit. And then we headed over to the Cleaning Finds minigame in the Varrock Museum that's unlocked after doing this. By doing this, you can unlock yourself some more kudos with the museum, which leads to further unlocks. Plus, you also earn the ability to create your own dig site pendant later, which is a ruby necklace that you can enchant to teleport to the dig site, to Fossil Island, and to the Rune Dragons once you've completed Dragon Slayer 2. So by this point, by cleaning finds and doing a few miscellaneous quests, we did have a fair bit of kudos with the museum. However, our next goal was to get 100 so we could do the Bone Voyage quest and unlock Fossil Island. Fossil Island's a great location for Ironman in all kinds of accounts with all sorts of activities. The main activities we were interested in, however, are the bird houses to train Hunter really, really quickly with very little effort, and also the Ammonite crabs, a really great place to train your combat skills, as these are aggressive enemies with 100 health and very low defense. So for the last bit of kudos we needed, I decided to complete the Demon Slayer quest and the Hazeal Cult quest. 2 very easy quests, one of them's free to play, they're both kind of for noobs, and that would just push us over the 100 kudos threshold that we needed. So I went into the sewer searching for a key. During this quest you do have to take 20 or 25 unnoted bones to a guy in the Wizard's Tower in exchange for one of the keys for the Demon Slayer sword. So we did that in multiple trips. I first went and killed some rats because we were just in Varrock anyway, and then I just simply went next door from the guy we were turning bones into and murdered all his wizard colleagues, and then handed in their remains to him. Killed the demon, completed Demon Slayer. Then we went to root out an evil cult underneath Ardoin. We sided with the good guy family and we got some armor or something as a reward. There's really very little you get for doing that quest, it was just for the kudos. In order to travel on the ship to Fossil Island, you need to create some kind of sea legs potion. This includes 2 full bottles of vodka which we purchased from the Grand Tree. And we needed a herb in a vial of water, so I headed back to the classic Chaos Druids just to grab that. Along the way we'd found ourselves a mind talisman, so I did decide to just really quickly whip up a tiara just for the easy Falador task, just to save some time later if we did decide to do that diary. An absolute ton of running around in this one. I did remember we had to visit the sawmill inside the woodcutting guild as part of this quest. However, we didn't have the Hosidius favour to get inside, so I wasn't sure we'd be able to complete it. Luckily, however, you can simply talk to the gate guard outside. Similar to how if you're doing the Hand in the Sand quest without the magic level for the Yanol guild, you can just ring the bell outside and continue the quest that way. Also, on the way round, we checked our oak tree that we'd previously planted in Lumbridge. Luckily, since we used super compost, the oak tree hadn't died, so we got ourselves a nice 600 odd farming XP. So after a ton of back and forth, running around, talking to pirates in Port Sarim, all sorts of things, we finally played the boat sailing minigame that sailed us across to Fossil Island. So with Fossil Island now accessible, I decided to stay here and kill some crabs for a while, just to get our defense level up to 40. I thought that'd be a nice round number just because we'd be able to equip rune armor and things like that. While killing the crabs, they did drop an iron pickaxe, which isn't the best, but I did decide to pick it up and go do Elemental Workshop quest. Elemental Workshop requires quite a few inventory spaces, so it'd be nice to get out of the way. You need to take a bunch of crafting materials as well as a lot of coal with you in order to complete the quest. So we scooted to Alcarid crafting shop, just grabbed a needle and some other stuff that we needed. Then we shot over to the Falador mine just to mine some coal. And then while inside the Elemental Workshop, we did kill one of each of the elementals, which is required for the Kandarin diary. As soon as we completed Elemental Workshop 1, we immediately started Elemental Workshop 2 for the same reason. I ran over to the dig site to start that quest. We mined a bunch more coal, headed back. This time we needed to do a little bit more item juggling to keep all the items we needed on us. We had to drop a bunch of coal and stuff on the floor just to kill some elementals and get some elemental ore. And just keep those juggled while we smith 2 bars. At the end of the quest you craft yourself a mind helmet, which also completes a step of the Kandarin diary, so that's helpful. And by doing both elemental workshops we ended up with 38 smithing and 39 crafting. With these quests out of the way, I wanted to make a dent in another quest that would be difficult for an account like ours, that being the Fairymennik Trials. Although for some reason I thought it would help us if we repaired the bridge from the lighthouse, just so we could get from the lighthouse fairy ring quite easily to the Fairymennik province. So I completed Horror from the Deep all the way up to fighting the final boss, because we certainly weren't prepared for that. To fight the Dagonoth Queen, you require all 3 combat styles on you, and we simply weren't prepared with that kind of gear and equipment, so we can easily come back later and real easily complete this quest when we're able to. And so, with the bridge fixed from the ferrying lighthouse to the Fairymennik province, I went to start Fairymennik trials. During the Fairymennik trials, there are 2 different steps where you need to either empty your entire invent or risk items that you leave on the ground while you go do something else. So we just wanted to make a start on this quest and see how far we could get. First quest requires you to obtain an enchanted lyre so you can play a show on the stage in the pub. There are 2 ways to get this. You can either craft your own, which required a crafting level that we didn't have, or you could kill the local villagers in an attempt to get one as a rare drop. I of course attempted to kill the villagers to get the lyre as a drop, but we went quite unlucky. I had to do a few trips. I had to teleport out, head to the Ardy Cake store, restock on food, fully heal, and then telly all the way back. After a few trips of not getting it, I did decide we would actually go the crafting route instead, so we temporarily put a pin in Fairymennik trials for now. The plan now is to go and complete the Observatory quest, as it always rewards some crafting XP, which would put us over the level 40 we needed to make the lyre. So I grabbed a few materials that we'd need in order to fix the Observatory, grabbed a few planks from Barbarian Outpost, smithed 1 bronze bar using ore that we just mined, smithed 1 molten glass using the materials we bought from the trader guys, and then I just grabbed a few cakes. Started the Observatory quest, just hopped worlds to grab the anti-poison that spawned nearby because it's often gone. Headed into the dungeon underneath the Observatory. Luckily, the key for the kitchen was in the first chest that we checked, which never happened, so that was really fortunate. I attempted to safe spot the goblin guard so we didn't have to fight him, but unfortunately he just walked out, so we just daggered him to death. Grabbed the lens mold. Then we returned to the guy, we created the Observatory lens, and then once more passed through the catacombs. After a tedious, unskippable cutscene, we completed the quest. We got ourselves a defense amulet as the random reward at the end. We didn't end up keeping this, but the main thing is we got the 40 crafting we wanted to craft our lyre for Fairymennik trials. So with that, we went back to the Fairymennik trials, grabbed a few vegetables in order to make a soup for a friendly troll, in exchange for some golden wool to craft our lyre, and on the way there we chopped down a special tree for the special branch we'd also need to craft this. Not sure why this is a crafting requirement, it seems more like fletching, but hey, whatever. So we scooted to Lumbridge Wheel and we span our golden thread into a wool, and we created our lyre. On the way back we headed to Fosgrimmen's Shrine with our raw shark to have our lyre enchanted. The raw shark, by the way, we just picked up from the can of his meat shop on our way around the map. We played our tune on the stage and completed the first part of Fairymennik trials and got our first vote. Next up we had to beat a local in a drinking contest, so we just buy some alcohol-free beer from a shop down here, set up a distraction outside so no one's looking while we swap the barrels, and then just by outright cheating we win the drinking contest and we get our second vote. Third up we had to leave Rellekka and find a ghost nearby and kill it using this ghost locating talisman. Sadly, the dragon was too tough for us with our no armor, our dagger, and our cakes, so we temporarily left. In an attempt to beat the ghost, I returned to the ZMI warriors and tried to safe spot the rune skim once again. We killed a total of 124 and just ran out of runes, didn't end up getting it. Just a reminder, the rune skim is 1 in 50, so we should have had 2.5 by this point. I had a glance at the ghost that we had to kill on the wiki and just saw that you could actually damage it with magic despite its really high resistances. So since I was already geared up to mage, I attempted to just go kill the dragon with magic. I just kept walking out of its aggro zone, maging it and then re-aggroing it. It took just over 2 minutes, but we did eventually kill it. Probably wasn't the way the Fairymenniks intended us to deal with the problem, but it earned us our next vote. After this, it was time for the infamous one small Fairymennik favour task. It's literally 10 minutes of running around Rellekka talking to people and spacebarring through conversations. Not exactly fun, but a relatively easy task. Only needs a couple of invent spaces because you just keep swapping one item for a different item. Next, we really quickly solved Swenson the Navigator's Maze. It's always the same. Whatever character you play on, so I just had the solution open on the wiki, so it literally took a minute, if that. And finally we were down to the last 2 tasks of Fairymennik Trials. Now the final 2 tasks in Fairymennik Trials are the ones where you either might or will definitely lose some of your items. You certainly can't bring any combat items inside, including all these runes we had on us, so I did decide to just leave the quest here for the moment and just make sure we could go use up our runes elsewhere, just so we didn't waste the money on them. So we headed back over to ZMI Warriors, it's a great place to go. And finally at 133 KC we did actually pull our 1 in 50 rune skim, which was really cool. It's a little bit bittersweet getting it right here as we're about to lose all our combat items. But since we did get it, I thought we'd make the most of it and go do a different quest first, using our rune skim that would help us to do the Fairymennik Trials. In order to beat the combat portion of the Fairymennik Trials that was coming up, I did decide that we'd probably want recoil rings. They really help you and you can bring those inside. To get these we'd have to enchant our own sapphire rings, and the best way to get cosmic runes to do the enchanting would be to unlock a new shop that could sell them to us directly. The Rogue Trader mini quest, which is accessible after the feud quest, would be the perfect answer to this. Plus doing the feud would give us a ton of thieving XP, so we detoured over there first. We went to help the town of Polovnich beset by two feuding factions. We complete objectives for both sides of the feud, including bribery with beers and scooping up camel poop, but in the end, as usual, we just end up making the situation in town worse. So we resort to doing what we do best, safe spotting quest bosses with magic spells from behind furniture. Heading back to Alley, we got from 35 thieving to 40 thieving from the quest reward here, as well as access to blackjacking, a thieving method which I've never honestly liked, but the main thing being access to the Rogue Trader mini quest that comes after. Of course, we started Rogue Trader straight away. Normally there's 3 parts to the mini quest that unlock different shops in Ali Morrisaine's stall. We can only do 2 because we don't have access to Sophanum to unlock the clothes shop, but they are only cosmetics, so it's not really important to us. Luckily, to unlock his stock of runes, all we had to do was visit our good friend Aubrey at the rune shop in Varrock and then come back, so we did that. On the way around, we also decided to nip to Polnavich again and just unlock the blackjack store as well. So if we do ever decide to do blackjacking, we can buy a blackjack from Ali on the way down to Polnavich. Ali's rune store is quite expensive. I wouldn't want to come here to buy runes specifically for doing combat, but if you only need a single one like a cosmic, it's far easier to come here and just purchase one instead of going to kill ogres or something. After this, we grabbed both a ring mold for our sapphire rings, and we bought both sapphires from the Alcarid gem trader on the way. Just on the way past, I killed some cows and turned their cowhide into leather at the tanner, just to craft a coif in the Lumbridge cow pen for a medium task. Then we headed to Varrock. We went to the basement of the bank in order to telegrab 2 gold bars. At this point, we were still missing the 40 smithing to smelt our own gold bars, but we would need them to make our rings of recoil. So we ran over to Ardy using the Cape Telly, used that famous furnace that we've used so many times so far, and made 2 rings of recoil in order to help us beat the boss of the Fairymennik trials. We then unequipped and sold pretty much everything we could that we didn't immediately need to the general store, as we'd be risking items on the ground anyway, so we might as well just sell them for cash at the moment. I did keep the rune skim just in case we could potentially hang on to it, but of course in our event we still had cooked lobsters from doing ZMI, and we had our Draman branch. The second one obviously we grabbed while doing Lost City quest, just because we'd be able to sneak the branch inside and then fletch it into a melee weapon once inside to help us fight the boss a bit easier. We then shot to the Brimhaven food shop where we did Tribal Totem that time before, and we just hopped worlds to stock up on the best food possible, a mixture of cooked swordfish and cooked karambwans. A full inventory of cooked karambwans would have been better, but it's a lot more world hopping, and honestly I think we'd just be fine with this. It's quite expensive to buy food from here, but it's definitely worth the money to ensure we don't have to do this boss fight twice if we fail. So we returned to Rellekka, we dropped our rune skim on the floor and our Ardy cloak because they weren't allowed inside. For some reason there were other people in here doing the boss, which you never see, which was really strange, and I think them being here made our boss take longer to spawn. However, it definitely took us more than 2 minutes to do all 3 phases of the boss fight, so our stuff would have definitely despawned regardless if they were here or not. So we went inside and fought Koschei with our staff, and we allowed him to damage himself on our 2 rings of recoil, which total 80 charges of reflect damage, which really makes a huge difference for something like this. You only need to defeat his first 3 out of 4 forms. In his 4th form he becomes like supercharged and whatever, and you can technically beat him if you have better stats than ours, but we didn't even want to attempt that because we wanted to be kicked out as soon as possible after the 3rd phase, just in case there was any chance of picking our items back up before they disappeared. Sadly by this point obviously they had vanished because it had been a couple of minutes, but since we sold most of our stuff, there really wasn't much that we lost. We just lost our Ardy cape, which is free to reclaim, and sadly we lost our rune skin, but we will get that back in future. So with Koschei defeated and our second to last vote to join the Fremniks acquired, we just had to beat Pier the Seer's house puzzle. Once again, this guy wouldn't let us attempt the puzzle with any items on us, not even our coins or any non-combat gear, so we did have to drop everything on the floor and risk it while doing this. I picked everything up and re-dropped it as soon as we went through the door just to make sure we had the maximum amount of time possible. Obviously, since we're using Quest Helper here, and I've done this a couple of times before, it was relatively quick. We managed to escape and get our things back. We just rudely ignored Pier the Seer as he tried to congratulate us and quickly went and scavenged our death pile off the ground. So finally we spoke to the guy and he gave us our last vote to become a Fremnik, so we ran to the chieftain with all our votes from doing all our Fremnik trials stuff, earned a few thousand XP in 10 different skills, and became an honorary Fremnik passing the Fremnik trials. We are looking really scuffed here, but that's a really painful quest out of the way, one that takes a lot of time, a lot of different phases, a lot of prep work that went into doing this one. If you remember all the way back to fighting the ghost, all the way back to doing the one small favour part, all that stuff. But that's a really nice quest to get out of the way just because you do have to risk all your items twice. A lot of small XP rewards for that one. You get 2,800 I think it is in 10 different skills. So at our point in the game where our skills are about sort of 30 to 50, that's not a huge amount anymore, but it does add up. Right guys, and with Fremnik trials out the way, I'm going to call this episode here. A load of progress in this one. Of course, we completed ourselves Bone Voyage and unlocked Fossil Island, so we can go train our combats over there, maybe even plant some seaweed, do some birdhouse runs, cool stuff like that. We completed a bunch of little quests along the way. We did things like Haziel Cult, Demon Slayer, Observatory Quest. Don't forget we did Pirate's Treasure, things like that. Probably the biggest thing we did this episode was unlock ourselves fairy rings. We did Priest in Peril, Nature's Spirit, Fairy Tale 1, and most of Fairy Tale Part 2. We completed both the Feud and part of Rogue Trader mini quest to unlock ourselves a nice new rune store. We did complete Horror from the Deep all the way up to the boss fight, so we can just hop back in there when we have the right equipment and just beat the boss and completely finish that quest and grab ourselves a god book. We also got ourselves 100 kudos with the Varrock Museum. We cleaned a bunch of finds and unlocked the Dig Site pendant, so we can enchant a ruby necklace and quickly teleport over to Fossil Island once we've attuned the necklace there. We completed every part of the Fairymennik Trials quest, quite tough. In the meantime, we completed the Feud and Rogue Trader to unlock a rune selling store. We've got a bunch of our stats up high. We got our defense up to 40. I think we were like 16 at the start of this episode, something like that. Ranged up to 21 from 1. We got our Hunter up over 12, so we can go complete the Ascent of Arceus quest, get our Arceus favor up over on Zaya. Got a bunch of mining levels and herb lore levels, a bunch of smithing and crafting levels. We completed both Elemental Workshop quests in this episode. We also leveled up our fire making a fair bit just to do Barbarian fire making. And of course our farming's all the way to 21, very nearly 22, and we haven't really grown anything so far apart from that oak tree, so that's kind of cool. I think in the next episode we're going to work a little bit more on our Korend favours. Going to head over to Zaya and see what houses we can do over there. Of course we did the plows to 5% favour this episode, so we can more easily do Hesidia's favour when we decide to go back. Unlock those fruit stalls for thieving training. And don't forget, back at the start we did Client of Korend and we put 20% favour into Piscarilius, so we can skip the cranes. As soon as we have the hunter level to go dig sandworms, we could really easily get the favour for that house up to 100%. Not sure about the others, not looked into those yet, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. As ever, a massive thank you for watching this series. Any comments or feedback, just drop it below. Let me know what you think of this style of video. It's a lot more tighter editing than the others. A bit shorter, but probably more content in this one than previous episodes. So it's tight, it's compact. But yeah, if you do want to see the next episode, obviously you can sub and you'll see the next one. Appreciate you guys watching. I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks very much. Bye.